Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Morning Edition Extra. I'm Josiah Pike. Thank you for joining us this lovely Friday morning. We begin today by throwing to weather. Now, as you might have noticed, the past few days have been a bit longer than the ones earlier in the winter. Looking back at December, I feel like they've been a little bit longer. It's been a trend that I've noticed at least most mornings the past few weeks or so. Now we have our meteorologist Bailey Braun, who's going to tell us if those trends are going to continue and what we can expect in the months ahead. Bailey?
Already in 7 hours of daylight, and we're going to expand closer to 8 hours of daylight by February 1st. Now, I don't know if you realize, but February 1st is Sunday, so it's coming up sooner than you realize, and before we know it, we're going to see 10 hours of daylight by the time March 1st rolls around. So that's just something that you can look forward to heading into the weekend. Now, I wanted to show you your temperatures right now across the state. Temperatures in Anchorage as of right now sitting at 31 degrees, sitting a little bit warmer into Bethel compared to what you've been seeing the last few days. Now, highs are going to start reaching back up into double digits along the western coastline. This is an area where we've been seeing temperatures much colder than usual, but this warming trend is on the way, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But for Anchorage, or for Fairbanks, we're looking at 1 degree for right now. Those highs are going to climb just a little bit more. Now, we have been feeling the effects of this warming trend not only in South Central, but we're also feeling it into the interior, again with these double-digit highs that we've been feeling, what we're seeing today and also for tomorrow in Fairbanks. But this is extending out to western Alaska finally after about a week of just cold, frigid temperatures, including that frigid wind chill. You're finally looking ahead to temperatures either back to normal or back to above normal. So that's just something to keep in mind as you head into the week and even progressing into next week. But looking at our state right now with our weather alerts staying very dry and calm into the interior, but I won't lie, we're seeing dry and calm conditions around most of the state with the exception of South Central and Southeast. You might notice a lot of clouds lingering for western Alaska on the satellite, expanding from low pressure, but we do have more of that wet weather lingering for areas like Seward and even into Whittier as more of that low pressure system begins to push from the west, or from pushing west from the east. Now, southeast is another area we're facing more of that wet weather. This flood advisory is in effect for Ward Lake if you are near Ketchikan. So here's a closer look at South Central right now. This is convective weather pushing into the Copper River Basin. This is where you can see most of that wet weather really anchoring itself into these two specific areas. But on the other side of the mountains, we're staying relatively dry, sitting in that rain shadow. So areas like Kenai, even into Homer, seeing just a little bit of those scattered showers. Anchorage and the Valley are staying relatively dry right now. Now, the chance for some rain will pick back up into the afternoon, but otherwise expect partly sunny, transitioning to mostly cloudy skies by the time later morning rolls around. Now for Southeast, here's that flood advisory that I mentioned. It's very microscopic, but you can tell it's just right near Ketchikan. So Ward Lake is overflowing just a little bit as more of that excessive rainfall pushes through. This is considered minor flooding, so it's nothing to worry about. Just means that it might interrupt your recreation plans if you were planning on going there. And for Juneau, this dense fog advisory is going to expire in about 2 hours. 9 a.m. is when that will expire. This flood advisory will expire by noon today, but brace for more of that wet weather even after these advisories and watches do expire. So as we look ahead, more of this wintry mix pushing into some higher elevations of South Central Alaska, but most of this wet weather staying anchored around the northeastern coastline of Alaska. So southeast, more of that wet weather expected. Higher elevations could get a little bit of snow, but then you're going to get a little bit of a break, just a little break, and that's going to be in the overnight hours tonight into Saturday morning. But you'll notice by Saturday night, that's when a second low pressure system is going to roll through, bringing that next frontal system and that next round of wet weather for you. So that's what you can expect. I'll show you your temperatures for the state for today. Those highs sitting into double digits across western Alaska, but you may notice mostly overcast skies all the way from Kotzebue down into Dillingham. We're seeing these cloudy skies as low pressure from the Bering Sea continues to push a little bit more west, still bringing in a little bit of that moisture. You can even see a little bit of it right there. And of course, that wet weather still lingering for South Central and Southeast, mostly for southern portions of Southeast, but South Central will remain overcast today with temperatures in the 30s and even into the 40s. Josiah?
All right, thank you very much for that, Bailey. I woke up this morning and saw it was 34 degrees, and actually I thought it was summer already, but we still got a few more months to winter and spring before we can get there, but thank you for that forecast, Bailey. Now anyway, getting into the main stories for this morning, we have an update on a tragic double homicide in Anchorage. Former correctional officer Jelani Blackshear has pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder for the deaths of his wife Rachel Blackshear and his 14-year-old daughter Jayla. In 2022, the 2 victims were found dead in an upstairs bedroom of their home on Resurrection Drive, just days after police say Blackshear left the state. He was later arrested in New York. He was also accused of sexually abusing his daughter days before the shooting. Joe Allgood spoke with the family of the victims and shares their message of hope for others.
I don't know, it was pain, it was grief, it was sadness, and probably a little bit of anger. Even though he'll die in jail, he's got life.
A guilty plea may provide some solace, but nothing is ever enough.
I was frustrated, I was angry, I was relieved. Not satisfied, but relieved.
Grief is the absence of new memories. And it came a harsh reality to me that there's a void that could never be filled.
If I ever have kids, they won't have a grandma. They won't have an aunt.
Rachel and Jayla were suddenly taken at the hands of domestic violence nearly 4 years ago. Family and close friends are still processing the pain.
I was a wreck. I was beside myself. I was on the floor every day, trying to figure out if I was going to get up each day.
Nevertheless, they carry on.
But I had 3 grandchildren that were there. And as much as I was there for them, they were there for me.
Never forgetting.
Rachel was funny. She was a character. She liked to laugh.
Me and Jayla would read. She was an avid reader. And so her favorite author, I started putting those books in my classroom.
Well, I keep this necklace here that she gave me, and we had matching ones.
Raising awareness.
There is always someone else that is going to be struggling with this because the most important people in my life were, and I didn't know about it. So I think the fire in my chest has fueled me.
And picking up the pieces.
Formed my own counseling called Mosaic Heart because my heart, I kept saying, was shattered, not broken. It was shattered by this.
With a word of support to those facing the same.
It's okay to be afraid, but you got to do it. You just have to do it.
You can't go by yourself. You can't say that I can handle this.
No.
That doesn't work. And if you're listening to us, I'm telling you now, doing it by yourself, it never works out good. Call someone, please.
Joe Allgood, Alaska's news source.
Now, Blackshear pleaded guilty to the murder charges and has agreed to 75 years for each to be served consecutively. Remaining charges were dismissed in the plea agreement, and final sentencing will be on June 2nd. Alaska State Troopers are seeing a sharp increase in impaired driving incidents. 6 DUI contacts were reported just this past week. Troopers believe the weather shift may be contributing to more reckless driving. The patrols are daily and the public is urged to use the READY report system for dangerous behavior like swerving or road rage. If you report, include a vehicle description, license plate, and location.
My first thing is if you're going to drink, I would have a plan. If you're going to the bar and you're going to a bar, your idea is probably to go to the bar and drink, so I'd probably Uber there or get a Uber back or have a friend come drop me off or whatever it is. The individual could figure out the logistics behind it. But my only strong suggestion is that that person do not drink and drive.
Now, a first-time DUI can cost upwards of $24,000. In Alaska, a third conviction within 10 years is a felony. Now to new details on the North Slope spill. State officials now confirm exactly what and how much spilled from the Doyon Rig 26. In a statement from the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation yesterday, upon further inspection, it estimates 4,000 gallons of diesel spilled and 600 gallons of hydraulic oil. There are currently no ongoing leaks and the coolant tanks remain sealed. DEC says no pipeline infrastructure or wildlife impacts have been reported. Despite the harsh conditions, officials say the frozen snow is helping to contain that spill.
Hey, check out this snow berm here. This is one of countless we are seeing right now around the sea.
Anchorage's record January snowfall means our snow dumps are working overtime. The Alaska Department of Transportation has one large snow dump location, and while there's still room, DOT crews are already taking action to keep it operational. Officials say they're actively pushing snow to create more space for incoming loads. While we've seen more snow than usual for January overall, it's been less than 10 inches more than average. But unlike last year's light snowfall, crews are now hauling snow away. This is crucial as the piles grow, making lanes smaller and impacting visibility at intersections.
Snow berm here. This is one of countless we are seeing right now around the sea. This one here just already over 13 feet tall. It's a common sight.
It's Alaska.
That we see every year. These snow mountains building up.
I remember when I was little, me and my dad would play in the snow hills and dig tunnels and, slide down them.
Right now, we are 9 inches above what is normal at this time of year, as the DOT and municipality of Anchorage continue chipping away at this month's 40.2 inches of record snowfall.
It'll be taking course here over the next several weeks.
Right now, the DOT says there's still room at a solo snow disposal site within the city as it works on piling up all that snow.
This is definitely a little bit more snow than we typically see this time of year. And certainly in terms of overall snow, we've definitely had more overall snow at the snow dump site than we do currently.
It's a similar story for the 7 muni snow disposal lots. The city telling us there's plenty of room and it's nowhere near capacity. Meanwhile, on the roads,
It is a lot of snow and the roads aren't super clear, but we're navigating.
there's still a lot of snow berms as the state works on slowly removing them and adding this snowfall to their collection. And the Department of Transportation says as they work on removing snow berms just like this one, they ask that you give their teams space on the road. Georgina Fernandez, Alaska's news source.
Now, the Muni has 7 snow dump sites around town, and the state has the one. Still, for drivers, that means giving snow plows and other work trucks plenty of room on the road.
We've got a
Starting Sunday, travelers looking to fly will need an acceptable form of ID, or they'll have to pay up. TSA says if you don't have a real ID or other acceptable identification, it'll cost $45 to get through security. The fee is good for 10 days, and TSA suggests going online and paying before arriving at the airport. If not, expect a long wait. It's also recommended you check the list of acceptable identification online. Now, you might have noticed a change in your TikTok feed if you use that app. After the transfer to American ownership, Jace Bertrand spoke with social media users and experts to learn about the perceived changes at TikTok and what it could mean for the future of the app.
It's kind of hard to believe it hasn't even been a full week yet since the app officially changed hands.
After years of debate over the ownership of social media app TikTok, US-based company Oracle officially took over on January 22nd. In the days since, users have reported issues uploading and searching for videos, specifically politically charged topics, such as Jeffrey Epstein and ICE.
Even though you follow a lot of stuff that's maybe against the system, you'll get less recommendations within that feed.
Users on campus at UAA and UAF expressed concerns about censorship, linking Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison to President Donald Trump.
Like, it's been educating a lot of people. That's why they want to ban it. It was a lot of people were getting global news outlets.
I think in situations like this, perception is really, really important. Regardless of what's actually happening, if people perceive that that's what's going on, if they feel as though the algorithm has changed or they feel as though their content is being censored, that's reason enough for some people to leave the app.
Since the US acquisition, and even though it's owned by private companies, some users believe speech is being suppressed.
I've seen like a few things where people are being banned and kind of like silenced for speaking on Palestine and the whole thing.
I don't think the acquisition of TikTok is wholly a good thing. It kind of leaves open a lot of stuff where there could be more political interference. There could be more government control over speech.
I actually stopped using TikTok on the 22nd. Because there was like, oh, we have a change of terms of service.
Sites like Red Note, the Chinese equivalent to TikTok, have been discussed as alternatives.
My personal opinion is that this stuff often is a flash in the pan. That being said, if TikTok continues to have major challenges, then yes, maybe we will see some people really leave in earnest.
While some blame censorship, Oracle and TikTok say issues with the app were a result of technical problems following a weather-related power outage. Jace Bertrand, Alaska's news source.
California's Governor Gavin Newsom announced earlier this week he's launching an investigation into the complaints of alleged censorship. TikTok has denied these claims and says the glitches users experienced were due to a power outage at a U.S. data center. All right, still ahead, we're going to be taking a short break, but when we come back, the details on the tentative deal reached to keep the government open and much more. So stay tuned because we got a lot more coming. Welcome back, and thanks again for joining us on the Morning Edition Extra. Now, in other stories, the federal government has quietly ended an immigration crackdown in Maine just days after it started. It comes as the Trump administration deals with the growing fallout from immigration enforcement in Minnesota. Alaska's News Source Washington correspondent Stephen Goyne has the details.
Immigration agents were only on the ground in Maine for about a week. Now, one of the state's longest-serving senators is making it clear that she advocated for this reversal. Just days ago, the Department of Homeland Security announced the start of Operation Catch of the Day. It was supposed to be a large-scale enforcement effort in Maine with about 1,400 targets identified by DHS as the worst of the worst criminal illegal aliens. Now it's over. On social media, Republican Senator Susan Collins confirmed it, writing that Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem informed her that ICE had ended its enhanced activities. It comes after Collins says she spoke with the White House and Noem, asking them to pause immigration operations in Maine and elsewhere.
I have strongly recommended to her that there be a pause on the enforcement surge in both Maine and in Minnesota, so that we can have a far more targeted approach.
At this point, it's unclear why Homeland Security ended this specific operation. While Collins has been critical of DHS, she's not yet joined other moderate Republicans who called for Noem to resign. And politics could be at play here. Senator Collins is up for re-election in a blue state, and many of her Democratic opponents have been much more vocal, speaking out against ICE. In Washington, I'm Stephen Goen.
President Donald Trump sent his border czar Tom Homan to Minneapolis this week after federal agents shot and killed 37-year-old protester Alex Preddy on Saturday. Alaska's News Source senior national correspondent Peter Zampa reports Homan spoke to reporters for the first time since arriving in Minnesota.
President Trump's border czar Tom Homan speaking to the press Thursday after meeting with city and state officials this week. Now, Homan says the plan is to pull back on operations in the area if local leaders cooperate.
We can start drawing down those resources as far as those looking for public safety threats being released, and do it in the jail with much less people. So the drawdown is going to happen based on these agreements.
Homan wants federal agents to have more access to jails so they can take undocumented migrants into custody after arrest rather than having to track them down if they're released back into the community. He says operations are targeting public and national security safety threats, but Homan acknowledges they strayed from that mission in Minneapolis.
Anything can be improved on, and what we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient, by the book.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry has repeatedly said local police will not enforce federal immigration law. 2 protesters killed by federal agents. Constant confrontations and chaos in the streets have many on the ground and in Washington calling for an end to operations.
We're not interested in a change in tone. We're interested in a change in behavior on the ground in American communities across the country.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries not only wants to see operations end, he also wants to see Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem lose her job.
She needs to be put on ice permanently. She's got to go.
Now, while Homan says there is a drawdown plan, he also says he's not leaving Minneapolis until the problem is gone. Now, exactly what that means, currently unclear. Reporting in New York, I'm Peter Zampa.
The Senate has reached a tentative deal to avoid a partial government shutdown. Concerns over a government shutdown have been floating around this week. Washington correspondent Emma Wolfhorst has the latest with just over 24 hours until Friday night's deadline.
As of Thursday night, a deal to avoid a partial government shutdown looks possible in the Senate. So how did we get here? Thursday afternoon, the Senate voted against the final 6 appropriations bills already approved by the House. Democrats opposed the amount of money going to the Department of Homeland Security, which oversees ICE and FEMA. Now, with the clock ticking, there's a deal to remove the full-year funding for DHS and replace it with a 2-week stopgap measure. This will allow lawmakers time to negotiate new terms, including ICE reforms. Democratic Senator Alyssa Slotkin tells us she believes the White House understands changes necessary to pass the Senate.
We heard very clearly from the president that he understood our concerns about ICE and what's going on in Minneapolis, and he accepted a deal with the Senate Democrats that we're going to separate the bills. The Department of Homeland Security and the behavior of ICE requires significant change, and we were just not ready to support giving them more money without that change.
If the Senate passes this new plan, it will go back to the House, who will also need to approve it. While funding for half the government is expected to lapse, the government is not expected to go into a full shutdown. That's because some key federal offices have confidence this plan will pass the Senate and House by Monday night. In Washington, Emma Wolforst.
Man accused of spraying Representative Ilhan Omar with an unknown substance at a Minneapolis town hall will now face federal charges. Washington correspondent Katrine Assaf has more on the Department of Justice's case against him.
The Department of Justice is now charging 55-year-old Anthony Kazmierczak with forcibly assaulting, opposing, impeding, or intimidating an officer and employee of the United States. This comes in addition to charges of assault that he picked up during Tuesday's attack. During a town hall meeting in Minneapolis on Tuesday, Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar was suddenly approached by Kazmierczak, who appeared to pull out a syringe and spray her with an unknown liquid. Omar's office says they believe the substance was apple cider vinegar. The incident came as Omar called for Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem to resign. According to the FBI, Kazmierczak said during the attack, quote, "She's not resigning, you're splitting Minnesotans apart," end quote. The affidavit released by the DOJ shows Kazmierczak had told someone years ago that, quote, "somebody should kill her" in response to Representative Omar, and has a history of criticizing Democrats and supporting President Trump. Wednesday, Representative Omar blamed the attack on the rift between her and the president, saying his constant verbal attacks have led to an increase in death threats. In Washington, I'm Katrine Assaf.
Finally, the last national story in this block, Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the Trump administration's capture of former Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and seizure of Venezuelan oil. Rubio gave his first public testimony since the operation on Wednesday. Alaska's news source Washington correspondent Brendan Cullerton reports from Capitol Hill.
Senators voiced their concerns about the Trump administration using strong-arm tactics across the globe and the possibility for corruption with Venezuelan oil. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the administration will always act in the best interest of the United States.
Off to jail. That's a war crime.
A contentious hearing over the Trump administration's actions in Venezuela went from a protester being escorted out to critics questioning the administration's tactics.
European allies are worried about open conflict with the United States. Canadian trading partners are turning toward China instead of the U.S.
When asked about the extraordinary military operation to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, Rubio made the case that the move makes both Venezuela and the United States better off.
We had in our hemisphere a regime operated by an indicted narco trafficker that became a base of operation for virtually every competitor, adversary, and enemy in the world.
Republican Senator Rand Paul says the administration's arguments about narco-terrorism and Maduro having illegitimate power are empty.
We do what we do because we have the force, we have the might, we do it because it's in our interest. So we wouldn't let anybody come in, bomb us, blockade us, and take our president. We've had arguments about legitimate, illegitimate presidents, bad elections.
Senators also questioned the administration setting up a bank account in Qatar to deposit hundreds of millions of dollars in U.S.-led sales of Venezuelan oil.
The oil sold for $500 million. That $300 million went to Venezuelan government. What happened to the other $200 million?
It's still sitting in the account, is my understanding at this time.
The account in Qatar?
Well, the account, yes, but that will ultimately be that's a short-term account.
Rubio says the Maduro regime was corrupt and was providing oil at too low of prices to America's adversaries.
China was receiving oil at a huge, about $20 a barrel discount, and they weren't even paying money for it. It was being used to pay down debt that they were owed. This is the oil of the people of Venezuela, and it was being given to the Chinese as barter.
Rubio says soon Venezuela will be allowed to sell its own oil, subject to U.S. sanctions. In Washington, I'm Brendan Cullerton.
And welcome back to the Morning Edition Extra. My apologies, I realized my mic was down just going into that last break. We were doing so well, we were having so little of those kind of technical problems, but what are you going to do? Anyway, moving on now, on the eve of the one-year anniversary of the mid-air collision in Washington, D.C., which tragically killed 67 people, the families of those victims held a memorial event. Alaska's News Source's Washington correspondent Emma Wolforce is back and has more from our nation's capital.
Loved ones and friends of the victims of the Flight 5342 crash gathered at DAR Constitution Hall, fewer than 5 miles from where the American Airlines regional jet collided with an Army helicopter over the Potomac River.
Our lives were forever changed in an instant 1 year ago.
Wednesday night's event focused on the victims and unsung heroes of the crash, remembering the 67 lives lost not as a number, but as people.
Their absence has forever changed our lives, our families, and our families' lives, and we carry them with us in everything we do every day.
There were various musical tributes, including the D.C. Fire Department's Emerald Society Pipes and Drums and National Cathedral Choral Society. Earlier this week, the NTSB released its findings in the investigation into this crash. They concluded the cause was systematic failure, issuing new safety suggestions like limiting landings and runways that overlap with helicopter routes and rerouting Army operations away from Reagan National Airport. In Washington, Emma Wolforce.
Now we have more on this story, as this crash is considered the deadliest aviation disaster in 20 years. National correspondent Deborah Alfarone looks at how first responders have been dealing with it 1 year later.
In the past year, 67 families experienced their first holiday without their loved one. Now, there's no way to encapsulate their collective grief in one story. This tragedy hasn't just transformed families, it's changed flight paths and laws and has left an indelible mark on first responders here.
That night, I saw ice skates. We kept seeing ice skates in the water, right? Sad enough that where some of the figure skaters had skated out of was where my son plays hockey, and so.
Marine pilot C.J. Isbell recalls the night of January 29th, 2025.
That evening, I was the first arriving boat that found the aircraft in the water and began to recover victims.
It is the deadliest airliner crash in decades. American Airlines Flight 5342 took off from Wichita Dwight D. Eisenhower National and was minutes away from landing at Washington, D.C.'s Reagan National. At the same time, an Army Black Hawk helicopter was on a training flight when...
Apparently both aircraft involved were in the river. It's a search and rescue operation.
To put it simply, Deborah, the conditions were unsurvivable.
The jet and Black Hawk collided, plunging into the Potomac River. 64 people on the jet and 3 on the Black Hawk died. Isbell and crew did what they trained to do.
The first was finding the potential for survivors, so that there was a large portion of the fuselage which looked to be a potential habitable place for a survivor, so that was our primary area for search. After it was determined that there was no survivors, the importance was recovering all the loved ones to be able to give some closure to the families.
Many of those skates, forever etched in Captain Isbell's mind, belonged to more than 24 figure skaters, coaches, and their family members, some as young as 11. It would take days to recover everyone. Then, both aircraft's black boxes. The NTSB's preliminary report pointed to the helicopter flying too close.
There was only 75 feet of separation at a critical point on that route circling to runway 33.
NTSB Chairwoman Jennifer Homendy said there were 15,000 near misses in this area between helicopters and commercial planes over the last 3 years. Months later, the family of crash victim Casey Crafton filed the first federal lawsuit.
It was preventable and caused the needless loss of 67 lives.
Last month, the Department of Justice admitted the government was liable. Many more victims' families sued too. Isbell says he and his co-workers want people to focus on the victims. He says it's still surreal. His workplace is the site of the deadliest aviation disaster in almost a quarter of a century.
I think everybody processes traumatic events in different ways. The department and our union has provided counseling and mental health services, peer support. Other folks is just being with other members who were there. Talking through it is helpful, but each person kind of processes those things differently. This is our dedicated job. This is everything that we do.
In Washington, D.C., I'm Deborah Alfarone.
And now in another story, more Americans are turning to AI chatbots for advice and support, including for mental health. And that's raising new questions about safety, oversight, and who's accountable when something goes wrong. In this Watching Your Wallet, Carice Jackman has details from a recent House hearing examining what guardrails may be needed.
We've seen the examples and heard from families of the harm that their children have met in terms of their fate in engaging, but we have not moved to do the type of legislating that would mitigate those damages.
On Capitol Hill, a House Energy and Commerce subcommittee is taking a closer look at AI chatbots, how people are using them, and where lawmakers see risk. Democratic Representative Yvette Clarke of New York is a ranking member of the subcommittee.
For America to be the global leader in AI innovation, including in industries such as mental health care, we must be proactive in developing safe technologies to make America's lives better.
During the November hearing, lawmakers heard from experts about how people are using chatbots, including for mental health support.
These systems are a useful sounding board and non-judgmental space for many people. However, individuals who are isolated, vulnerable, or less familiar with AI and its limitations may face greater risks.
Clarke says she doesn't see chatbots as all bad, but she and other lawmakers say the big question is what guardrails should exist, especially with kids' exposure to these tools.
Someone, unfortunately, is profiting from the fact that the ecosystem of AI technology and just use of the internet can generate great wealth at the expense of the health and well-being of the people who have made it possible for them to gain that wealth.
The debate is also playing out at the White House. In December, President Trump signed an executive order calling for a minimally burdensome national AI framework and warning a patchwork of state laws could create different requirements. The order also directs the Justice Department to form an AI litigation task force to challenge some state AI laws the administration says conflict with its policy goals. With this Watching Your Wallet, I'm Carice Jackman.
Now, Costco rotisserie chickens may be affordable, but they're at the center of a possible class action lawsuit. In a January 22nd filing in a Southern California district court, the wholesale retailer is accused of false advertising by claiming there are no preservatives in the chicken. The filing says they contain sodium phosphate and carrageenan. Costco released a statement to USA Today saying those ingredients are used to keep the chicken moist and to ensure consistency during cooking. Costco says it has removed labeling and signage about preservatives. Starbucks is a morning routine for many, and now they're looking to get customers back later in the day. The coffee chain will roll out a new afternoon menu over the coming weeks with new snack and drink options like tea, matcha, and energy drinks. The new afternoon menu will also include snack options with protein and fiber. New items will be available in the morning as well. Finally, Papa John's hopes a move backward will help it move forward. The pizza chain has been facing slumping sales for 2 years. Now it's banking on a menu item from its past to help draw customers back. The restaurant is relaunching pan pizza, something it hasn't offered in a decade. Analysts also say, as far as customers are concerned, better ingredients and better pizza don't equal better sales. The biggest thing most people consider when deciding where to order is price. Competitor Domino's has seen success with promotions that lower those price points. And it's an injury that disrupts normal brain functioning. Concussions are caused by a blow to the head or sometimes even the upper body. While effects don't always linger, if this injury isn't caught early, symptoms can last longer than they should. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither talks to the lead author of new research that found concussion symptoms in young children are often missed.
They're often linked to car crashes or contact sports, but concussions can happen to anyone, even young children.
The vast majority of young kids, preschool age, are injured just in falls.
Dr. Sean Rose with Nationwide Children's Hospital says because young children don't always have the words to share their symptoms, concussions are often missed or misdiagnosed. And he says because of that, about 1 in 4 children younger than 6 years old who suffer a concussion will develop prolonged symptoms.
We need to correctly diagnose a concussion and make sure that there's appropriate time for the brain to heal before going back into activities that might put you at risk for another injury.
Rose is lead author of a new paper which found that when children between the ages of 0 to 6 years old suffer a concussion, it can lead to symptoms like behavioral changes, excessive irritability, appetite changes, decreased socialization, stomach aches, and increased dependence or clinginess.
These symptoms can affect their daily lives. They can affect participation in things like daycare or school if they're in school at that point. They can also affect parent-child interactions.
Rose says anytime a concussion is suspected, see a doctor because identifying symptoms early can help the child avoid long-term problems.
If these are not instituted early on, then symptoms can often continue longer than they typically would.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Now we're going to be taking one last short break, but don't go away because when we come back, an amazing rescue story is coming to us from Massachusetts. So don't go anywhere because we're going to have all the details for you when we come back. And welcome back to the Morning Edition Extra. Now next up we have a furry fashionista in Illinois who's bringing joy everywhere he goes. And he's proving a wagging tail and a loving heart make for excellent medicine. Local News Live's Cindy Stoffridgen introduces us.
Fall is life, bud. This is Jerry Garcia, aptly named after the frontman of the Grateful Dead.
Oh, Jerry the gentleman.
he wants to tell you all about it.
As his mom, Heather Prunty, says, 8-year-old Jerry has never met a stranger. That's what makes him the perfect companion where she works at TLC Living Community.
He will cry if he sees someone across the street that he can't meet. He starts like this and his tail's going. He sees a person and he cannot wait to meet them.
Heather says Jerry is not an actual therapy dog, but says he is a natural at emotional support. In fact, he is known around TLC as the Jerapy dog.
He lightens the mood. You cannot help but smile.
89-year-old Helen Carney calls Jerry her grandson. She says every resident is greeted with a wagging tail and a helping paw.
My husband died just about a little over a year ago, and you still miss him when you go into the room. You think he should be there, and you don't ever get over that, but a dog helps to make up for some of that loss.
Helen believes what makes Jerry such a happy little guy is that he knows he is loved, and he gives that love right back to everyone he meets.
For those of us that have lost our parents, our husbands and wives, it's not that they fill the void, but there's somebody there that shares your sorrow.
But it's not just his happy-go-lucky attitude or ball skills that garners the attention of onlookers. It's his snazzy appearance.
I've never seen a dog that would leave shoes on their feet.
And it's not just his shoes. Jerry turns every hall at TLC into a runway with his tiny Air Jordans, dapper suits, and Elvis apparel. One resident even gifted him a tiny Jerry-sized hat.
Now, it's the same resident that got him the Grateful Dead shirt, but he knows that he's an astute little tiny gentleman.
When he's not serving looks and bringing comfort into the living community, Heather says Jerry is all about playing ball, which he did the full hour and a half we visited TLC.
Oh, he can't even help it. Oh my gosh, that's 3. Oh, that's 4.
Now we have another nice dog story for you actually today. An incredible rescue story out of Massachusetts. A dog is now safe after spending nearly a week in sub-freezing temperatures and heavy snow. Rondella Richardson reports.
The Needham area dog is finally safe. Found shivering. The dog had been dodging humans, full of concern for it, for 6 days. It was finally rescued from a backyard on Bess Road.
The deputy fire chief saw the dog, let our animal control officer know.
She had been darting around Dwight Road, the Central Avenue area. The Sunday snowstorm had area residents sick with worry for the dog.
Knowing it was going to be a lot of snow and all that, and just feeling really bad for it, but the public response was outstanding and just made me cry.
Social media posts saying, "This sweet girl is on the road to recovery, and I cannot believe she survived," highlight the shock and relief.
It's doing well. From what I understand, it might have had some frostbite on its paws.
Wherever it hunkered down for the night to brave 2 feet of snow, it worked out well for everyone.
The dog will be okay.
Police believe the dog was just abandoned.
People are struggling, bills are high and everything, and it's unfortunate that that might have been the case, but there's always options to drop a dog off at a local shelter or to a hospital and just say, listen, I can't do it anymore.
And Americans spent 45 billion minutes watching Bluey in 2025, and believe it or not, it's actually not just kids. CNN's Angus Watson, a dad and Bluey fan, breaks it down.
If you've ever put Bluey on for your kids and realized that you're watching too, there's a reason. It's a really creative, thoughtful and entertaining show. For the second year in a row, Bluey, the Australian cartoon, is the most streamed show in the US. According to Nielsen, Americans watched over 45 billion minutes of Bluey. That's a staggering number considering that most of these episodes run to about 8 minutes long. Kids keep watching and parents keep rewatching. I know that my 4-year-old son and I are obsessed with this show. And there's more on the way. A full-length Bluey film will be in cinemas before 2027.
Now, some kids at the YMCA in Iowa got a fun and yummy lesson this week. They rode stationary bikes to make smoothies. Now, first the children add ingredients like fruit, juice, honey, and yogurt to a blender. They then connected the blender to the bike and got to pedaling. Now, the pedaling made the blades of the blender spin to combine the ingredients. Many of the kids rated the activity 5 stars. Now, dozens of Magellan penguins at the San Francisco Zoo got their annual checkups Thursday. It wasn't as hard as herding cats, but it was close because each of the zoo's 53 penguins got a full exam, including a vaccine against West Nile virus. They also got what the staff calls a mani-pedi with their beaks trimmed and toes checked. Then it's back to their home in the zoo's Penguin Island exhibit. Mexico's president calls it her country's most significant archaeological find in a decade. It's this 1,400-year-old tomb from the indigenous Zapotec people. The site in Caxqua has well-preserved artistic details. They include a sculpture of an owl, an animal that can signify night and death in the culture. Other features include carvings of human figures and a multicolored mural. Mexico is still home to hundreds of thousands of Zapotec speakers. And that just about wraps up the Morning Edition Extra for this Friday morning. Thanks for tuning in today. We'll be back at noon with the latest in local and national stories. So thank you for tuning in again, and we'll be back with the Morning Edition Extra on Monday. So thanks for coming and joining us on our streaming platforms. And to read more stories, in fact, to read more on pretty much all the stories we mentioned today, head to our website, alaskasnewssource.com. Thank you very much for tuning in today, and have a great day.